Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube? I'm here with JP.WATKINS, author, consultant, speaker. We're going to talk about the transformation from Anthony Heath to JP.WATKINS and why why the need for the transformation. Starting, I want to ask you this though: how long have you been a writer?
I've been writing for over 20 years. Writing seriously. What inspired me to write was I tripped over a book named Horson by Donald Goins. And anybody that know my history, I was kind of a bad kid. I got kicked out of junior high school. And I read this book in one sitting. And I wasn't a reader because I couldn't identify with George Washington never told a lie. And, Abraham Lincoln was, this great emancipator and different stuff like that didn't connect to. But this Horson, it just spoke to me. And he wrote so vividly and so graphically that I was like, man, I think I could write. So, mind you, like I said, I was a junior high school dropout. So, when I sat down to write, I had a word processor, first of all, I couldn't even type. So I'm poking, and my pages was literally, the whole page was a paragraph. It had no indentation, nothing. So I'm poking, and initially I didn't want to write what was called what I consider hood books or something like that. So I was like, man, I wanted to write. I felt like I could be a decent writer, and I was gonna write this book called Ocean Tyrants, and it was gonna be a spin on, because the bad boys of yesteryears was pirates. And you know how good girls like bad boys, like the bad boy of today is your dope boy or whatever. So I wanted to put a spin on that. So I wanted to write about pirates. So I had this story about the princess, the king's daughter, falling in love with a lower class person, of African descent, and the king commissioned the death of.
So why the other direction?
So, well, what happened was when I sit down and write this masterpiece, so-called, I was gonna put a spin on Blackbeard. So basically, the king commissioned the death. He didn't die. He wanted to get revenge on the king, so he became a pirate. His arm was cut off, his leg was cut off. He became a pirate, started robbing the king. So when I sat down to write this story, I was like, how many people was on the boat? Did they have women on the boat? They didn't have refrigerators back then. How do they store their food? What did women do on their monthly cycle? So I had all these questions. And then I was confronted with my ignorance. I was like, you can't write nothing else. You don't know nothing else. That's all you know is hood stuff. You can't write nothing because you don't know nothing. So that's what kind of got me on a journey of going back to school. I started reading about the Atlantic passage, the slave passage. And as I learned about, what our forefathers and forefathers went through, because I knew we came over on ships. I didn't know that much. And then the sad truth is, where did women have their menses? Where did they go to the bathroom? On themselves, as it pertained to slaves. Certain women self-suffocated. Some of them refused to be in bondage, so they jumped into shark water. That blew my mind. And I was like, why am I trying to be a back alley executive? Why am I trying to be an average, everyday dope boy when I could be pursuing something great? I was like, because we represent the strongest of the strong.
Right.
So either the physically, because a lot of them died from dysentery infection. They got through in shark water. So like I said, some of them self-suffocated. Some of them died in revolts. So I started reading about history. But the initial thing was so I could write about pirates, so I could learn about boats. That's how I got kind of spilled over into that space. But I wrote what I knew, and I knew about street life. So that's how I became a writer.
Awesome. The power of the name Heath Anthony transitioning to JP.WATKINS. Tell us why all of a sudden the.
Well, I know it may seem, because I got off of social media. I went through this kind of like spiritual shift, and I had to really come to myself. I was being conflicted because I felt like I was operating under capacity. I felt like I was trying to tell a rock to become an orange. I was trying to literally raise the dead.
Wow.
And so I had came to a place where I was like, well, why am I not honoring my inner
Could you
greatness?
explain that? Just
As far as raise the dead. Well, as far as like with my social media, people know me as Heat Anthony. Of course, some people knew me by JP.WATKINS, like my professors and peers that I went to school with. So, and that's the thing. I've always had this kind of like fragmented identity because people from the streets know me as Dub, like childhood. People I grew up with, they know me as Dub. My street name was Dub. Then when I went to school, I was JP.WATKINS. And part of that reason I was JP.WATKINS because my government name was James. It was always another James. So sometimes people call James. There's 3, 4 of us raising our hand. So JP just was a more distinct identity. And so then that shift, well, part of why did I become Heat Anthony in the first place should probably be maybe a better question. Because Heat Anthony was part marketing. Heat, because, hot, because I wrote what I consider fire fiction about Akron, inner city. I called it Inner City Intrigue. And so that's where the heat came from, because I felt like it was hot. It was fire. And then Anthony really was like a marketing thing, because I was thinking of, hey, once my books hit the store, because I remember I would go to the bookstores and look at the layout. So I would look at like people like Zane, but it's alphabetized. So, Tyler Perry. So like Zane Z. So you got to literally get down on the ground. But Zane, she's a household name. People know who Zane is. Nobody knows who Heat Anthony is. I'm pretty, a handful of people, but in terms of success like Zane, Tyler Perry, nobody really knows who I am. So I'm like, well, maybe if I put myself to where Heat Anthony ends with an A,
Not to get off track with this question, I want to ask you this: how much of your life, of you, JP.WATKINS, is familiar with? How can we relate that with Heat Anthony, with the books that you write? How much of that?
I would say quite a bit. I mean, a lot of it's sensationalized. It's just for the art of what I call edutainment. It's just to entertain. A lot of the over the top stuff. Some of the themes. I always write with a message in mind. Like I want people to walk away with something. So it's a piece of me in every book that I write. So, and I still write up under Heat Anthony. So it's not like I'm discarding, but from the writing space, my key pen name is Heat Anthony when I'm writing in that space, as far as inner city intrigue fiction. But now when it comes to this personal governance, JP.WATKINS about self-help, elevation, taking control, self-accountability, that's JP.WATKINS. That's that more broader platform, Awesome. So, yeah.
That is awesome. So what can we expect from the JP.WATKINS personal governor?
Personal governance? Well, definitely can expect a lot more visual. My goal is to really pursue that path. I was inspired particularly by three people, a lot of people, but 3 people in particular. Jim Rohn, he was big on, personal development. Also, Dr. Miles Monroe, he was big about pursuing your purpose, putting that spiritual point on it. And also Les Brown. Les Brown's one of world-renowned motivational speakers. I can really identify with him because he was saying, I could just identify so much with his struggle when he was saying, hey, how am I going to be a corporate trainer? How am I going to be speaking to businesses and stuff like that? And, I'm unlearned. I don't have a formal education. He was saying all these basically things that look like a disadvantage. Yet he's still a global trainer. People, I say Les Brown, most people that's watching this, they don't know who Les Brown is. So I was looking at it from my situation. Well, yeah, I'm a junior high school dropout. I'm a former convicted felon. It's like, but I do have a formal education. So I'm looking at it like, well, you know what? I can identify with the piece of having to go back to school to get a GED. I can identify with being downtrodden, being born to a single mom, 7 kids, making a way out of no way. graduating
Mm-hmm.
in spite of all the challenges and the
Right.
odds.
Yes. And listen, we know that as a black male coming up the way that you did and the with all the obstacles that was against you, um, you've been incarcerated, so you had to face the challenges of coming out into society, even though they telling you, hey, you just once you get a charge with drugs and things like that, what can you do? You know, you had a nursing degree.
Yeah, well, I worked as a what they call a state tested nurse's aide. I did that before I fell into the underworld of becoming a drug dealer. Then I did that for a while, and then I got caught,
Nursing.
and then and I also had a um, end up getting a degree, a diploma in medical assisting.
Okay.
But it was null and void after I got these felonies. So all of a sudden it was like, well, you can't work with the vulnerable population because you're a felon, even though it was a non-violent felony. It's like you're a fresh felon. So once I got out, a lot of times the first thing they ask is, have you ever been convicted of a felony?
Mm-hmm.
And that thing was a challenge for me. I didn't realize it at the time, but that would be a challenge for me for like the next, 15 to 20 years. That bounced. So once I figured, well, I'll go to school, I'll get a bachelor's degree, I'll go to school, I'll get good grades, and I went and I graduated like with a 3.9, um, magna cum laude, and I did really well. And I thought I was going to go on for a PhD, but then I hit like a stone wall because I didn't want to pull out no more debt. I already got plenty of student loan debt. Didn't want to get no more debt, so I figured I'd find a fellowship. But I figured I would get a few years of teaching, kind of, get myself some experience, and then I could also work on while I'm pursuing getting into entrance into a PhD program. However, once I started applying for these jobs, when I hit that box, have you ever been convicted of felony? Hit that yes, wouldn't get no calls back. So eventually what I did is I applied for a few places and, was dishonest. I didn't hit the X. Didn't hit, have you ever been convicted of felony? But no, I got calls. So I knew for a fact that the felony was definitely hindering me,
Mm-hmm.
slowing me down. And so then that's when I ended up bouncing back and forth between Montana and Ohio because I needed to work, pay child support, stuff like that. And it was just really wrestling with, well, I want to be a part of my kid's life, but I'm here. I'm unemployed or underemployed, and it was just a big challenge.
So you could have went back into a world where you knew you could make money.
Yeah.
To struggle. I mean, how did you get the courage to I mean, sometimes when people know that they can make money this way, they won't go the honest way.
That's true. I was explaining to one of my former coworkers when I was out in Montana, I had a job as a family support specialist supervisor, and also had a second job as a direct care. And the first job required a bachelor's degree, and the other one didn't. So between those two jobs, I was essentially working two full-time jobs. As crazy as that seemed, I was working two full-time jobs, and I was explaining to her, I said, I still don't make in a whole month working two full-time jobs that I've made in one day in the streets. And she was like, wow. And but the biggest challenge was, for me, the biggest motivation was my kids. I didn't want them, because a lot of times, we would tell our kids, well, you do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
But I realized myself, when I would see people doing stuff, I'm like, well, it would really kind of discredit them.
Right.
If you smoking, I remember some of our aunts would be smoking, our uncles be smoking. Hey,
Don't
don't
drink,
you
don't.
smoke, don't you? And you sucking it down, and
Right.
smoking. So it kind of discredits. So I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to walk the talk. So I remember times showing my kids. I would show my kids, my 2-week check, and they would see that $157 check, and I said, look, this is what Daddy got left after child support, taxes. This is what we're gonna do. I would show them, how to manage that. Like a lot of times, it was times where, instead of paying my car insurance, if I even had a car, I go out, take my kids out to the movies, and then when they would be like, well, Daddy, we want to do this, this, and that. Well, this is it. You know what I'm saying? Because I still wanted them to experience doing stuff with me, even though technically I really needed to take that money and pay my car insurance, but I wanted to spend that time. So they got the memories of going to the movies, going to dinner, and a lot of times I spent everything. We went out to the movies, everything was spent. That that $150, most of it was gone. Once I put gas in the car and stuff like that. But I wanted to show them that it wasn't about the easy way. It was about the right way, or at least what I believe was the right way. Because I didn't want them to fall into that fold of, well, hey, Dad, I always got what I want. Daddy always got me name brand shoes. He always got me the finest, latest, greatest, everything. Like when I was hustling when they was younger, they did all that. But luckily they were young enough to where they don't remember a lot of that. So when I got out, I was determined to not fall back into that lifestyle and to set a better example for them. So.
Okay. Well, I know you're currently working on a book under JP.WATKINS.
Yeah, I'm working on a book, entitled Personal Governance, and the subtitle is an inward journey to discovery and prosperity. And what that's really talking about, personal governance, it's really a philosophy. It's an active philosophy where you as the individual take a lion's share of the responsibility for how you react to stuff, and you do absolutely everything in your power. Everything. So instead of focusing on, like, say, things going on with the economy, things going on with weather, things going on with politicians, that's out of your hands. Everything that's in your hands, like for instance, like myself, like you can see I'm coming back down. I've struggled with my weight over the years, been up and down. So I'm wondering, like, I see people, they getting real mad about these politicians, they did this, the Congress ain't do that. But you can't really do nothing about that. Not directly. But you walking around here over 300 pounds with a blood pressure 200 over 100, and you ain't doing nothing about it. So why are we putting a lot of worry into places that's not going to help our lives? To where if you do these, take to some consistent, persistent action, you can change your life. So by doing the things that you can, you get more confidence. By getting more confidence, you get more courage. And then by taking these consistent actions, you change your life, and it empowers you. So the big thing that I'm about is empowerment. Working in human and health services, that was about, helping the vulnerable population, helping the elderly, helping persons with disabilities, helping them, self-advocate, helping them be empowered. So now what I'm just doing is expanding that to others who want to feel empowered. Whether you are in a domestic violence situation, whether you're a manager or a leader of your company and you feel unempowered, like you feel like, well, I feel like the boss just leaves me impotent. It's about empowerment. It's about connecting with those who want to do better, and for those who can't, those who are unable, that vulnerable, like I said, I work with persons with disabilities. There are some people, they can't get up.
Right.
They're bedridden. They can't walk. So for those people, we want to be the best people we can, so we can advocate for them, so we can help them. So my goal is really to help people help themselves, help people feel empowered.
Wow. Well, you heard it here. This is JP.WATKINS, author, consultant, teacher, speaker. Check us out again on YouTube, Personal Governance.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.